Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability Podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of folks with disabilities. That means we're going to be talking to a variety of people. Sometimes it's parents raising kids with disabilities. Sometimes it's an adult who grew up as that kid, or a lot of different people that support them. First of all, I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to listening, so thanks for tuning in today to our podcast. This is one of my nonprofit spotlight episodes, and I'm super excited. You'll get to meet in a second our guest, Aaron, from the local unit of the Make-A-Wish group, and then one of their recipients, actually, and good friends and advocates for the cause, Will, is with us today. So first of all, for both of you guys, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. It's
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you guys. We always like to get into the topic at hand, but we're all just people, not defined totally by the world of disability. So we like to do what we call the Fast Four. Now, the Fast Four is brought to us by our friends at Reliable Tech Help. So if you're kind of swearing at your computer and you need some help, you need some tech issues, reach out to Reliable Tech Help at 502-797-7399. Let's start with the Fast Four. Ladies first, Aaron, we'll start with you. What is your favorite food?
Probably ice cream, specifically coffee ice cream.
Okay, I like that specific answer. Will, how about you? Favorite food?
that is honestly pretty tough because I'm pretty flexible. I like a lot of foods. I am a sucker for a good grilled cheese though.
Okay, you can't go wrong there. All right, we'll stick with you, Will. We'll go back and forth. What about your favorite? If we were to look at your playlist, what's some music we'd find you listening to?
Again, I listen to all kinds of music. But I love the alternative genre.
Okay,
So it's
very
like
good.
it's a combination of like pop and rock.
Okay, fantastic. Aaron, how about you?
It's probably country, being from Kentucky. So,
Okay, there you go. Kentucky and country. We'll do it. Number three, let's talk. We'll stick with you, Aaron. A good movie, book, or guilty pleasure TV streaming show that you're enjoying lately.
my go-to TV show, I've seen it probably three times through, probably the old episodes, is Grey's Anatomy.
Okay, Grey's Anatomy. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of ups and downs in Grey's Anatomy. That's a little traumatic right there.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Will, how about you? Book, movie, show?
So recently, my brother and I went to the movies, um, and we saw. Well, this was a few months ago, but we saw Inside Out 2, and it was absolutely fantastic. Like no spoilers, for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I'm just gonna say, blew me away.
Oh, awesome. So if you haven't seen Inside Out 2, you're fully recommending it.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, last but not least, we'll stick with you, Will. Is there a bucket list destination that you have not been to but would love to go see?
Ooh, that is a tough one. Because like there's a lot of places I'd love to go see. Um, I guess I guess Rome would be pretty cool. Like
Okay,
see like the Colosseum and all the old structures and maybe the Vatican, that kind of stuff.
there you go. There's quite a few things. Well, okay. And Aaron, how about you?
You say Europe, probably specifically Italy. My family's all Italian. We're from originally from New Jersey. So, got to
Okay.
go visit the roots.
So you guys are both going to Italy. Let's do it. Let's put it out in the universe. Well, thank you guys for being here. Aaron, why don't we start with you? I think a lot of people know of Make-A-Wish, but they don't really know a lot about kind of your process and how it works. Tell us a little bit about your role with the organization and what you're doing there in your particular region. We'll start with that.
Oh, for sure. So I have been with Make-A-Wish for almost 2 years, probably in January. But at Make-A-Wish, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, we're the largest chapter in the country. We span 3 states. So I specifically in Louisville cover fundraising for the whole state of Kentucky and Southern Indiana. So right now we have around 440 kids across the state of Kentucky and Southern Indiana. We have promised a wish and for these kids to be referred to us. They just need to have a critical illness. So we create life-changing wishes for children diagnosed with a critical illness. And specifically in Louisville, where I work, there's around 211 kids we have promised a wish. So I'm in charge of all of the fundraising. So galas, walks, just different events we have throughout the year. I'm in charge of the fundraising. So we get the money to grant these wishes.
Fantastic. Now, I'm a fundraiser from back in the day. So when you're talking, I'm doing some math here. Over 200 kids, let's say in Louisville, probably the wishes aren't $1 each. What do you have to raise to grant 200 wishes, let's say?
Yeah, so the average cost of a wish has changed throughout the years, but right now it's currently $10,000. So we tell companies that come in and families that donate or community members that are just fundraising in general that if they want to grant a wish, it's probably around $10,000, the average cost.
Okay. And we'll talk a little bit later about, we'll come back to the work of the organization. I might even ask you about some of the variety of kids you've had the pleasure of meeting and families, and some of their wishes would probably be interesting to hear. But we're lucky enough today that you've been joined with someone with a past and a present connection to the organization. So why don't you introduce who you've brought with you today?
Yeah, so this is Will. I've heard tremendous stories about him and his family, not specifically relating to his wish, but just what him and his family have done over the years. He's kind of famous in our office. He's got a couple pictures hanging on the walls. My coworker Jen talks about this family a lot just because they're so kind and they experienced a wish, and I'll let Will talk a little bit about that himself, but they just saw the joy that it brought him and his family that they wanted to do it for another kid. So their family actually fundraised enough. When they did it, they raised over $5,000. And then specifically at our walk we just hosted, they raised nearly $8,000. So this is a family that just makes my heart happy. They've experienced the power of a wish, the impact of a wish, and they're just coming back to make sure all these other kids in the state get to experience that as well.
So we've gone full circle. So Will, you're an alumni who was granted a wish, and your family is still involved and you're involved giving back. That's amazing. So thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about, take us back in the beginning, your medical condition, your diagnosis, like what kind of prompted you to be in this world and for your family to reach out to Make-A-Wish to grant you your wish?
Sure. First, I just want to say it's been a pleasure here. I appreciate the invitation from you and Aaron. And yes, you're absolutely right. It is a wonderful full circle moment. So just to give a little bit of backstory, I was born with a rare syndrome. It's called Shwachman-Diamond syndrome. Hard to say, even harder to spell. I was diagnosed at 3 years old, and I was actually born and raised in the Louisville, Kentucky area. And given that it was such a rare condition, they referred me up to specialists in Cincinnati Children's, Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've been blessed to follow specialists with Shwachman-Diamond ever since. And now you might be asking, well, what exactly does Shwachman-Diamond do? Like, how does that impact you? So I like to break it down into 3 main categories. It affects me with pancreatic insufficiency, which just means it's harder for me to digest certain foods. I have skeletal abnormalities. I've had multiple surgeries throughout my body, like over 20. I'm also like shorter than the average person too, even though you all don't see that via Zoom. And then the last one and the most important category is bone marrow failure, which led to my fight with the condition of, I was developing acute myeloid leukemia. Now, thankfully and blissfully, my doctor was able to catch it at a very early stage. And I was able to have a bone marrow transplant at 7. My youngest brother was my donor. I have been 18 years technically cancer-free. It has been wonderful. But during that time, as I was going through my transplant, it wasn't a guaranteed to
Right.
be a success. So it was actually one of my nurses that reached out to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they reached out to us. And I was able to meet with them, and I I'm forgetting the name of the representatives that I met with, because I was so young, but we kind of bounced off different ideas. Um, and that was when I decided, uh, I am so sorry. Did you want me,
No, go ahead. You're talking about your wish. What did you
oh,
decide?
okay, cool. Yes, yes.
I'm on
So
the edge of my seat. Will, I want to know.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I have a tendency to ramble. So, um, it was at that time that we were brainstorming different wish ideas. And my family and I had gone to Disney before. I was really young, like I was like 2 or 3 at the time. So I like vaguely remember anything about that. But when the representatives told me like some of the wishes that they've granted, like building playgrounds, having pets, meeting celebrities, going to places like Disney, I was like, oh, cool. But then I started thinking, well, I want my wish to be something unique, something special. So I decided, because at a very young age, I would love the parades. Like the parades were really cool. So I decided, you know what would be really even cooler than going to Disney? Being a part of a Disney parade. So
Yeah.
like I proposed that, and like they were really excited about the idea. And that's, I think it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I don't know. My childhood can be a little bit of a blur sometimes.
Sure.
This was, I think my transplant was 18 years ago. I want to say my wish was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, is that correct? I think that's correct.
I believe so. I think we had 2007.
Yeah, wait,
It was a minute ago.
17 years ago. I can't do math in my head right now. Uh, but the bottom line is that I'm very blissful and very thankful that the Make-A-Wish Foundation was able to grant my wish. And because I enjoyed it so much, and because I had so much like fun doing it, I decided I want to give back. I want to have other families, other kids an opportunity to grant a wish. And I might be jumping the gun right now, so please feel free to stop me. But would it be all right if I tell about like my giving back?
Yeah, let's hold that thought. We'll come back
Okay,
to that. I
sure,
want to
sure.
hear that because and thank you for that backstory. And you do it so kind of nonchalantly, but that's not a nonchalant thing to add to a young kid's life or parents. Because I think you told me off camera that you're the first of 3. So you've got young parents who have this kid facing this whole battle that's quite you like a curveball to be thrown as a
Oh,
family,
absolutely.
curveball for you as a kid to be growing up facing all these extra challenges. So talk a little bit for our audience about what that was, the discussions you've had with your parents, or just observing like what was it like for them, and then what was it like for you, just knowing you were facing all the things that come with being a kid and growing up, but then you've got all these doctors and surgeries and medical conditions, and you kind of go through this stage of like realizing, okay, this is my new life and I've got to live a life that's not totally defined by just my medical conditions. Talk to us about that journey for you, what it was like, maybe number one, and then we might get to like, if anything, looking back at it, what did it teach you? How did it inadvertently help you? Let's start there.
Sure, sure. Um, so I love my parents dearly. I think given that I was the firstborn and there were already some inherent expectations about being the firstborn of the family, and then being, I guess you could say, given the unfortunate opportunity of raising a child with a rare condition, I applaud them greatly for the way that they did handle it. And you're absolutely right that like looking back on it, what I encountered was a huge deal. Like having a child go through cancer at that age. Well, okay, having cancer at any age is a huge deal, but then having it as a child is even more of a big deal, huger deal. Anyhow, but the way that my parents described it to me, because they were very worried about like me being like very over worried with my condition, they described it to me as, oh, well, Will, your white blood cells are just sleeping. Like they explained it to me in a very simple, like almost a non-threatening way. Like they
Sure.
didn't make it as big of a deal as they probably could have or should have, because again, cancer is a very adult topic. It is a very big deal.
Right.
So I am very glad that they kind of explained it to me as like my blood cells were falling asleep. Um, Now, with that being said, I did kind of feel very different, like growing up and very isolated. I did not feel like a typical child.
Right.
Um, Primarily because A, given my condition, I was a bit shorter than the rest of my kids.
Mhm.
And then B, my immune system, at least at the time, was a bit compromised too. So, like, if I were to have like a simple cold or a flu, there was a good chance that I could have been hospitalized. So I think I think growing up, I did feel a bit different and a bit isolated from everyone else. But at the same time, I am very thankful that my parents were very like supportive and comforting and very loving and helping through the process.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Forgive me, you had another question to
Well,
ask.
I was gonna say, like, how did you learn as the older you got and you became obviously more cognizant of what was going on? How did you learn to basically like live your life in spite of that? You know, like you had to have a
Yeah.
life, not a life defined by just being a kid with a medical condition.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I think me with my condition and me being like hospitalized, it kind of forced me to grow up a bit faster and
Yeah.
deal with that condition. Um, it wasn't after, I think it was a few years after my chemo treatments and my transplant that they fully explained to me, like, Will, you were dealing with like the development of cancer. Um, and looking back on it, I realized that I'm actually a lot stronger than the average person because I had a lot of resilience. I had a lot of strength with everything that I went through.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's the very simple answer to your question.
That makes total sense. And so if you were brought in to speak to a group of young parents that had kids facing medical conditions or other kind of diagnosis, just a different path, what do you think your advice would be to them on how they can best support their kids and kind of like lessons you might have learned? Or you're not a parent currently, but obviously you were in the first chair and the parents are kind of in the side chair. What advice would you give having gone through it?
Oh, it is a little bit of a tough question. Um, I would say I would say first and foremost, love and accept your child for who they are. Like your child is the entire package, condition included.
Yeah.
And yes, give whatever condition that may be. Like with me, it's Schwachman Diamond and the barriers and the certain I guess you could say yeah, like certain barriers that come with it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, just love and acceptance and willing to support them and make them feel like happy. And again, that's very vague and very cliche. Um, at least in my personal experience, because I was born with like a rare condition, I felt almost like not explicitly an outsider, but it was still like in the back of my head of like feeling different.
Mhm.
So that would be kind of one. Number two is if you can find a specialist for your condition. Like for me, I was blessed to have specialists up in Cincinnati who I was able to build a relationship with and specialize in whatever and who specialize in my condition. So
Yeah.
they were able to best cater to that. Like they knew they knew all the boundaries and all the barriers that came with it. And then the last one, I guess you could say my last advice for the kid is,
Yeah.
if possible, try to allow them to have a chance to be a child, to have fun, to go to the park, go get ice cream, go to the movies, be with friends. Like just because you were born with a rare condition, despite the fact that the kid may feel different, doesn't explicitly make it or make him or her or them. It doesn't explicitly make them different.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Yeah, accept your kid for who they are and that their totality of their person isn't their condition, and then let them have a childhood and be a kid, and not that. I love that. So Aaron, I'll turn to you because you've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different families who probably have a lot of different labels behind them, diagnosis, conditions. What have you seen are the common threads through those families that are key, like kind of breadcrumbs to success of raising a kid who's on this very challenging, often very different, obstacle-filled path?
Yeah, so I think just like Will said, just piggybacking on what he said is just like the encouragement and keeping hope. We try and tell our families, and Will said it himself, that going on that wish, he got to be a kid. He got to get away from the doctors and the specialists. He got to spend time with his family and just like not worry about the diagnosis when you don't need to. Let these kids have like their childhood, let them do things they want to do. Before I told you, Jim, before I worked with Make-A-Wish, I worked for a TV station, a couple of them, one specifically in Alabama that worked closely with Make-A-Wish in Alabama. So we did telethons with them, and I specifically got to partner with a Wish family and tell her story from beginning to end, from diagnosis all the way to her wish reveal live on TV. So it was just a special moment for me. I got really connected with the family, still keep in touch with them to this day. She's in high school doing well. She had a heart transplant, is in the marching band. So just seeing how just the impact of a wish and the hope that they can beat or just push through whatever they're fighting with, their critical illness they're fighting, and having this wish or just having something in general they can look forward to just keep their mind off of it when they don't need to be focusing so much on it.
Yeah. One of the dilemmas I talk with a lot of parents about, and it makes sense, is that whole put your oxygen mask on first so you can take care of others, the aspect of self-care. Do you see in a lot of the families you guys work with, or Will, you can speak to like your parents having this kid with a medical condition? Sometimes it's like all hands on deck, that fight or flight response. You're always taking care of your kid, sometimes to the detriment of taking care of yourself as a parent. Parents that are traveling this extra road tend to put themselves last. Aaron, I'll start with you. Can you speak to how you've seen that play out? And I guess being an observer, what advice would you give to parents about taking care of themselves along the journey?
Yeah, and we definitely see that firsthand, of course, because every parent wants the best for their child. So they're going to do whatever it takes. But sometimes you need to take the back seat, need to bring in other family members, which is what we see a lot. We have extended family come in and help when we have wish kids referred, just because it's more of like a family affair. Like you need everyone to just go to doctor's appointments or fill in or take some sub in at times when they need to, just so these parents can have a break, because these kids, like Will said, that have critical illnesses, they're dealing with it for their entire life. So just having these parents and someone they can rely on, whether that be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, just having them help out really makes the world and really makes the difference for these families.
Will, anything to add to that on like parents taking care of themselves, even though their focus is so much about taking care of the kid?
So one of the blessings that my family had was we had a lot of family members who lived locally, like
Mm,
within the Louisville area.
sure.
So as Aaron was saying, sometimes you do need to take the back seat. There were some days when my grandparents would look after me, for example, or they would take care while I was being taken care of like by my parents directly, my brothers were being taken care of by like my grandparents, for example. I can't speak for my parents directly because their experiences are unique. But from what I could understand, there were some periods of time when they were pretty stressful with everything that I was going through. So yes, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you do have to take a moment to step back and just breathe and take care of yourself. Because it's very hard to take care of others when you can't take care of yourself to begin with.
Yeah.
So self-care is really essential.
Yeah, I think one of my guests once said it's kind of hard to pour from an empty cup, right?
Yep.
So if you're depleted, you can't give to others. Well, I want to talk about giving back, but before we do, we're going to take just a short break. We'll be right back. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and the challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 13 years of experience to his clients and helps them to be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 502 803 5075. And now back to the show. All right, Will, you talked earlier about your experience with Make-A-Wish and giving back. So tell us about what joy that brings to you and what you're up to these days.
Sure, absolutely. And yes, I'm really glad that you stopped me from pulling the cat out of the bag. I was just really excited to tell about my giving back story. Um, because so when I came back from my wish from Disney World, I had so much fun. I had an amazing time. So I did some reflection and decided I want to give back. I want to have another family the opportunity to have fun and be a kid. So at the time, I will admit, because I am from the Louisville area, I am a huge fan of Churchill Downs. My grandparents were actually, they were members of an area of Churchill Downs called the Turf Club.
Mhm.
Um, and in that Turf Club, they were close friends with one of the managers there at the time. So and he was actually a former jockey too. Very long story short, we went to him and said like, "Hey, we recently came back from a Make-A-Wish trip. Is there any way you all could help us like raise money to grant a wish?" And they agreed. So we decided to auction off Derby and Oaks tickets,
Oh, wow.
and then the money would then go towards granting a wish. And we were really excited. We set up this little booth and we raised at the time it was over $5,000, which was enough to grant a wish. Um, I don't remember the exact details. I just know that we were able, I think, yeah, unfortunately, it was so long ago that I don't remember the exact details of the wish that I did grant.
Sure.
I just felt really honored to be able to give back. And kind of ever since then, despite me going through school and college, and I am now working full time
Yep.
for another nonprofit, which is really cool. Kind of giving back just to the community as a whole. I still am. It is an absolute honor to still give back to the Make-A-Wish organization every once in a while and just to help out where I can.
Yeah, I love that giving it back, kind of paying it forward, if you will. So that's really,
Absolutely.
really awesome. So Aaron, If folks want to learn more about you guys, how do they find out about you? Tell us your website. Where do they learn more?
Yeah. So we actually, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we have a Louisville office off Hurstbourne. A lot of people are very shocked when they find that out, but we have an office in Louisville, so you guys can stop by at any time. Or we have a website. It's www.wish.org/OKI, which stands for Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So they can find out more there about local events coming up in the area, as well as fundraising efforts we are making across the state and then across our chapter as well.
And I always like for people to know, what are the big needs? So are you guys looking for volunteers, for sponsors, for funding? Like, what's going on right now?
So of course, we're always fundraising. That's a year-round thing. As you know, working in nonprofit, we're always having events. So we are always looking for corporate partners to come in and sponsor some of those events. So if you or your business is looking to get involved, you guys can reach out to us. Also, we're always looking for volunteers and wish granters. We need volunteers to step up and help with whether that be celebration boxes that every kid gets before they head to their trip, just little goodies to get them excited for their trip, or actually helping out with a wish. We have a lot of project wishes in Kentucky, pools, playgrounds, things like that, that need volunteers to help put those together, as well as volunteers to help out at our events. So if you're interested in getting involved, they can just reach out or look at our website.
I would think listening to Will today, everybody's going to want to get involved. So I'm hoping you're getting a rush of people. You might also have some people listening who are traveling this different path that think, boy, I know somebody that probably needs to be applying to do a wish. So how does that process work? It might be different around the country. We have listeners all over, but for you guys, if somebody knows someone in that family, like you said, your nurse originally initiated the process. Tell us about how that works.
So from my standpoint, being on the fundraising side of things, I know a little bit about this. So I think if you or your family is interested in the Make-A-Wish organization and want to know if your child can be referred to our organization and get a wish, I would definitely reach out to your doctor and they can start that process to see if your critical illness or whatever diagnosis the child has can be referred to us, and we can start working with that family to help them grant their wish.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, Will, any final thoughts to share in terms of parents out there raising kids on a slightly different path?
I would just say never stop giving up hope. Like, always continue to encourage the child and support them in the best way that you can. And just know that there's always a chance that things could get better. So,
well, we're glad that the outcome back in the day was what it was, so you could be here with us today. Absolutely. So thank you guys both for being here, and thank you for listening. We could use your help. We're trying to get the Seeing Ability podcast into the ears of anybody who could benefit from it. You know, we want this podcast to be educational. You're going to learn something when you listen. We all need a little dose of inspiration. I know I got excited listening to these two today, so we wanted to provide that inspiration or motivation. And last, but certainly not least, we wanted to provide another layer of your community. As Will said, it can be isolating for families traveling a different path, and we want folks to listen to this. But we're a best kept secret, so we could use your help getting the word out. Go to our Facebook page. Just go to seeingability.com. That'll take you to the Facebook page. Please like this episode and share it with your network. If you're part of a parent group that's supporting folks in given community, share it with them. And then leave us a review. If you're finding value as a listener, leave us a review. That helps more people find this podcast. Again, thank you guys for being here today. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see everybody next time.